This conference will now be recorded.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us today. We're going to be meeting with AT&T today, and they're going to be sharing some details on their thermal imaging and temperature monitoring solution. It's pretty interesting solution they've got, and so very excited here to have Rob Ayres from AT&T Business and a couple of his colleagues online. Welcome, Rob and team.
Thanks, Sam. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Great, and you guys can all see my screen. So let's get into the nitty-gritty here. I'm going to tell you what you're going to find out today. So key takeaways that you will have learned during today's session by joining us is firstly and foremost, video and IoT solutions, the Internet of Things solutions are here already. And AT&T has actually developed video and IoT solutions leveraging AI and machine learning in conjunction with thermal analytics, business continuity analytics, and safety and operational analytics. And so while we very much believe work from home is going to be here to stay at some point in time, particularly with the COVID vaccines going out and people getting vaccinated, people are going to want to get back into the office at some point. And as they do, as leaders of those businesses, we need to make sure that their employees feel safe when they return to work. And asking them to come into the office doesn't generate a health risk for them. And then finally, you'll find out a little bit about USA Voice and Data. We're basically independent technology advisors. We help businesses make technology solution and vendor evaluations and decisions easy. And as you'll find, you can get a free technology transformation plan just by reaching out to USA Voice and Data. So whether that's to do with one of these video and IoT solutions with AT&T, or whether it's a work from home solution, such as a UCaaS solution, contact center, whether it's internet connectivity, whether it's networking between your offices, we're here as your independent advisor and broker. So more of that later. Let me just click through. So what's on our agenda today? Well, first and foremost, we're going to start by sharing the single common goal that every business has as they open their doors. We're then going to be handing off to the AT&T crew, and Rob's going to be running through their video intelligence and data analytics solutions, along with some case studies, which hopefully will really bring home how useful these solutions could be to you, no matter what your sort of business, and whether you own your own property or whether you have a lease on an office in a larger building. It might be a great solution for the owners of that building or the management company for that building. So really, again, I think these solutions can be used by anybody, and that's what's so great about them. And within that portfolio, we're going to be identifying three core solutions that they're bringing to the table. Firstly is a sort of thermal analytics platform. The second being a kiosk that you might see as you actually check in at a building or something like that. And then finally, a thermal crowd scanning solution. And we'll go into the details of each of these later. And finally, we're going to wrap up with, again, just a quick synopsis of USA Voice and Data and how we help clients evaluate their technology solutions, such as these from AT&T. And if you have any video intelligence or IoT needs, such as these, how on earth do you go about registering them and getting some assistance with them? So with that, let's kick off with the first thing. So what is the common goal? Any guesses out there? Well,
being safe.
That's pretty much it, staying safe. Restart or maintain operations within a safe and healthy environment. And obviously temperature screening, I don't know how many of you have seen some sort of temperature screening, whether you've been visiting the doctor or whatever. There's going to be somebody who's always going to be measuring your temperature, etc. And that temperature screening is really your first line of defense as an employer, and to help defend against the spread of illness. So really, that's really what we're looking at today. Again, I'm glad to be joined by Rob Ayres from AT&T. Rob, do you want to just introduce yourself, and then I'll hand it over to you.
Sure, I'd be happy to introduce myself. I'm Rob Ayres. I'm out of Denver, Colorado, and have been in wireless, telecom, M2M, IoT for roughly 25 years. I've been with AT&T for about 9, and working specifically within our applications portfolio, mobile applications, as well as what we call the Internet of Things, or IoT, which is, of course, simply about connecting not only machines, machine to machine, but also people, processes, and gleaning intelligence out of that, right? A lot of institutions are data rich and unfortunately are kind of information poor. So IoT, or Internet of Things, is a way to, of course, solve that need and realize not only efficiencies, but address things like safety. So that's what I do. I support, of course, USA Voice and Data, and what we call in general our Alliance Channel, a group of integrators, consultants, much like USA Voice. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much for working with me, helping pull this all together, Rob. We're looking forward to getting some idea of the power of these sorts of solutions.
Yeah, and definitely. So what you've put up here, just in terms of the topic today, we don't have a lot of time together, but is thermal analytics, and we're going to get into that pretty quickly, and temperature scanning, and what we've laid out in terms of the agenda. This is a little bit of a step back and a broader view. If you look at video intelligence and data analytics, what AT&T has put together in terms of video intelligence, it's been around for a while. So there's a number of, I should call them features, solutions that you can address with your customer that are a little bit more traditional. I mean, they come out of things like smart cities, right? A little bit more of a surveillance feel. This is different. This is pulling analytics. You can use some of those traditional things like intrusion and protection, but it is an end-to-end integrated solution. So there's a number of different pieces of equipment, vendors that we've brought in that really provide that situational awareness. It can use, you see some different words in this definition, not only new cameras. We'll talk about thermal camera. Yes, that's a new device that you would need. But you can also leverage existing cameras for a lot of the additional video intelligence functions, especially around the new COVID applications, if you would, or use cases. So it's just all about you being able to make faster and more informed decisions and taking a lot of that manual aspect out of it. So we could talk about this slide for about half a day, right? There's a lot in here, and this is really the, if you would, all of the components, features, and benefits for video intelligence with AT&T within our IoT portfolio. And so you kind of read the first line here. It applies AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to video footage and provides near-time reporting and near real-time reporting. We'll talk about that term here in a second. And actionable alerts in these categories. And when I say actionable alerts, in the 90s we get an email, maybe an SMS text, and you could take some action on it. There's, of course, APIs and automation that we'll talk about, how this can be integrated into things like turnstiles and entry and that type of thing from a pure security perspective as well. So thermal analytics, we're going to cut over to this very shortly and cover the three, fairly new products, if you would. I mean, we had thermal analytics as an option in terms of intrusion and protection, a number of other categories that it might have been applied in, especially things like, strangely, agricultural, preventative maintenance, manufacturing, healthcare. But this is specifically the COVID use case, if you would, that we'll talk about. But we'll also talk about how that might be redeployed where we all want to get to post-COVID, right, or post-pandemic. The other piece, the business continuity analytics there's a number of solutions, and you see this with the use cases with retailers here. So this isn't going to specifically talk about just providing screening for elevated body temperature before allowing entry. That's the thermal analytics piece. Number 3 here on the use case for, say, a retailer. But think of providing estimated wait times for entry. So more and more, it's about curbside pickup or the option to go in, order ahead of time. There's a lot of different things just in terms of retail changing very quickly and being quite flexible and adaptive to it. But just think about occupancy today, and we had that discussion, Sam, a little bit earlier about, it's unfortunately the usher in the pew, right, can take a clicker and look at these things. But if you're trying to reopen bars and churches and restaurants and small businesses and hotels, it's not just understanding how many people, to the fire code that are in a particular room. There's now percentages, right, by municipality, by state, less federal guidance at this time, but certainly something you want to be aware of. But, 25% capacity, social distancing, how do I do that? Well, you can do that today with video analytics and some of the additional features, not only with thermal, but again, with some existing cameras, and we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and obviously those guidelines are changing every day, right? So, here in Chicago, we've been up and down and so on and so forth, and open and closed, and percentage of your normal mandated number and so on and so forth. So what's nice about these solutions is you really can leverage them broadly. It's not just about, is somebody safe coming in because of their temperature and so on and so forth. The other use cases with the counting and so on and so forth obviously adds some value for reporting that, hey, yeah, we are staying within code and so on and so forth, right?
That's right, and everybody's got that story. You mentioned things being in flux, pretty dynamic. I have a 10-year-old son. He went back to school for 8 days, right? And then they turned around and sent everybody home. So it's, that's part of this, being able to apply this technology, especially in retail as well, can start to identify some post-COVID use cases like traffic counting, understanding patterns, dwell time, all of those things as well. Healthcare, Sam and I he was maybe laughing at me. I said, hey, I've had a bad dental year just based on timing with COVID. I had lost a few pieces of gold and crowns and whatnot. So I've had, unfortunately, 3 visits to my dentist in the last, since March in particular. And so, each time I've gone in there, it's been a very manual process. So there's been an individual, and I go pretty early, about 7 a.m., and they come out and they put the thermometer to your forehead. You fill out paperwork, literally paperwork, to say, here's the 8 questions that I'm going to answer. I haven't been anywhere in 2 weeks. Haven't been in contact with anybody in COVID. I don't have these symptoms, etc. And we were kind of talking, where does that paper go? Part of it I tore off, and you take up and hand to the receptionist, and, okay, we filled that out. The healthcare use cases we'll talk here, all 3 of these can be applicable, these thermal solutions across this category. Certainly determining as you enter, as I described, just a dental office, that can be automated, within that lobby or foyer, or a larger healthcare facility, obviously. But again, some of the wait time, the queue monitoring, of course, social distancing, being able to do that with the human eye and record that is quite frankly impossible. So really good use cases. It's kind of a no-brainer with healthcare. But a lot of those, I think, can continue on as well, just in terms of as you check into healthcare, taking a questionnaire, right? It's actually quite common without a pandemic as you look at that. Manufacturing may be the least nascent area for video as a sensor. It is more and more common, especially within what we call, again, the Internet of Things. So there's all kinds of ability now for folks to do things in manufacturing, reduce latency and keep traffic local, right? And really have quick reaction time and analytics. So not just viewing, for instance, hand washing monitoring, but personal protection equipment. We think of masks and specifically hand washing monitoring today as a couple of activities or objects you might want to measure or identify, but also think of hard hats, all the things traditionally that need to be worn for not just, HIPAA, as well as meeting different privacy requirements, but things like OSHA. And safety, video can be a really, really key part to safety operations on a daily basis as well. Okay, so a little bit of an eye chart, but or a little smaller, I should say. I've got my reading glasses on, so I'm in pretty good shape. But as Sam had outlined earlier very cleanly on a slide, we're going to kind of spend our time talking about three little bundles, if you would, or solutions that are integrated solutions and IoT consulting have broken out. And it really is, again, in response to, if you would, the pandemic, new use cases for IoT analytics. So the first is the Thermal Analytics platform. We call it that, the AT&T Thermal Analytics platform. You'll quickly discern in a number of slides, this is an integrated offer with AT&T maintenance, as well as support and installation. It's got our name on it, right? AT&T Thermal Analytics platform. But there are partners behind each one of these, right? That's the whole integration component to it. It is part of an overall video platform and solution. So it happens to be Hitachi behind the curtain for the first column, if you would, here. And then the bundle that we've created to make it easy to get started, address this first need, and then potentially redeploy or scale this solution. It's available in a wall or mounted or portable solution, and we include connectivity options for each one of these solutions, but for Thermal Analytics, excuse me. So underneath that, very quickly, there are some asterisks. So what does that mean? There are additional components that can be just simply added as a service versus additional hardware. So intrusion detection, people counting and occupancy, queue management, personal protection monitoring, social distance monitoring, and curbside pickup and drive-through lane management. As I mentioned before, a lot of this is recast slightly from some traditional use cases within kind of a smart cities environment or more of a sophisticated venue. The kiosk, designated a little bit more specifically for healthcare. Column 2 here, it does integrate with back-end systems. It looked, as you saw that first picture, it's not the obelisks that are appearing out in national parks. It's actually quite portable. My size, 5'11", 6 foot, that type of thing. And it does also, for that particular offer or bundle, include the connectivity. It has the ability, just like the first one, it has APIs and can integrate into access control systems. So if you haven't figured out already, we have a really, really sophisticated team of experts. It's actually only about 6 to 8 people deep that are IoT business development managers for this, and can answer all the specifics on, exactly which systems, of course, it can integrate in, what those APIs are. But most importantly, under that thermal kiosk solution, and I've had personal experience, and Sam and I talked about this with all of theirs, it's a built-in questionnaire, and we'll touch on that in a second, but the ability to have that and have somebody fill that out with a variety of different means.
So, Rob, before you go any further, when you're talking integrating with access control systems, so the kiosk system might be a perfect situation for like a multi-tenant building, one of these large high rises downtown Chicago, where you're basically got a lease on a couple of floors or a floor or even a smaller office or whatever, and those buildings are being managed by a building management company, and so on and so forth. So those might be something you'd see in the entry lobby of those sort of buildings, and they would integrate. You could integrate this solution with their access gates and their card passes and all that sort of stuff.
That is correct, and so that's feasible not only with the kiosk, but also with the solution from Hitachi, the Thermal Analytics portfolio. So we've seen things like, of course, alerts, but you can have alerts in the form of like digital signage, would appear on the screen. The turnstiles, if you would. I'm trying to be more politically correct this year, but I think of man traps as an old kind of physical security term, but the lobby that people walk into, and certainly in the scenario of a multi-floor tenant building, yes, it could potentially unlock, right, that second door and give them access into that. So great clarification questions there. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and
so
go ahead.
then you're getting into crowd scanning.
Yeah, the crowd scanning one, it's again got our name on it. That can scan multiple people. If you have a use case, we're going to go through all three of these in detail. But you have a use case where you want to or need to scan larger venues. That's sort of what it's positioned for. So, in fact, my wife just participated in kind of an outdoor sales environment, right? Not a flea market, but downtown in Denver, and it's allows the small businesses to open up for a couple of weeks, the Denver partnership. And so you could view that crowd, but also gives you the ability to do people counting within a specific geographic area that you define in the analytics platform. Mass detections, you can have alerts from that as well. So scanning that whole crowd, you get a quick indication without violating or showing their actual P2 identity. How many might be over a certain temperature, or how many in a particular area. You can do people counting, and then are they wearing their masks? All that data is helpful to provide to open back up.
Yeah, I'd imagine this would be great for government entities and stuff like this, trying to get an idea of that whole counting thing and mass detection. It's like, what percentage of our people in the city are actually wearing masks, be pretty interesting.
That's right. So we talked about this being kind of similar, but I think it's a useful slide. It's something that our product managers put together in IoT. And by the way, we can always have a follow-up call with him as well as the IoT business development team. But think of some of the things we mentioned here, the big check mark integration with either your as a customer, if you have an existing video management system, what's called VMS. This Hitachi Thermal Analytics platform comes with we'll show the components, but a VMS system itself there. If you look down below, some companies, especially certain states, municipalities may have some country of origin issues. So, it is a non-China camera. It happens to be where we can send you specs. It's called an Axis thermal camera for the first column. And you do see components manufactured in China for the other two, at least the camera itself there, the location. So some different ways to kind of break that out and different use cases that can be applied. I think the app applicable to registered personnel. So think of that as integrating again into that ERP system, however your access system, it's really that crowd scanning one that's not going to identify everybody, through that access management system. That's the only one there. So I don't know if we want to drain that. I think it's helpful later if folks want to kind of take a look at that. So as this kind of says number one, and we've been sticking to the columns here, the Thermal Analytics Platform solution. And this is, all of it is fairly nascent. We were a little more nimble than usual, meaning AT&T, and this came out probably in May of this year, maybe April, kind of pre-sales, if you would, in terms of the bundle. But it's just that when we say near real-time reporting of temperature reading for rapid screening, what that means is this does not, it's not really streaming this anywhere. There's no person accessing this video feed remotely. Typically, there would be an individual, a security guard, somebody from the management team for real estate that's sitting there that would see, or it's integrated into digital signage or another terminal very close to there, right? And they see pass or fail. It's a non-invasive solution for checking elevated body temperature, but there is no storage on this solution by design. So we've actually removed the ability, it's a 1 terabyte drive on the Hitachi VMS thing, and we've removed the ability to store this information on there or stream it. So why did we do that? It does meet GDPR, and you go, well, it's available in 50 states. Why am I worried about that? We don't have today a very intensive federal privacy act today. It also meets the California Consumer Privacy Protection Act in terms of essentially biometric readings. And then we've made sure literally state by state that there's not a conflict there. The FDA recommends that temperatures are taken one by one, versus the crowd scanning as well. So you're going to find that this, without having to really work with our consulting and IoT team in depth, this bundle is going to fit most of those compliance use cases there. So I've probably beat that up enough. If you go to the next screen, I'll kind of discuss a little bit about how it works, because it's got the same picture on there a little bit, and what the actual solution components are. If you haven't figured out already, it doesn't show any personal identifiable data. That's one of the really key things. In fact, with this solution and any of the features, whether it's queue times or object detection, it pixelates out the individual user's face. It will just show an outline. It does measure at the tear ducts there, and what we're going for is, red. It's going to put a red box around the individual user's head for fail. If you've got a predefined temperature of 100 degrees and they're over that, they've stood there for 1 to 3 seconds, it's done that, it's going to give you a red light. You can put a yellow in there, but typically it's green or red, pass or fail. And you can kind of see the bullets there just in terms of how that discusses that and where that may be applicable. But that's how it works. You stand there for about 1 to 3 seconds. I mentioned to Sam earlier, I had to go down. I thought I had a laptop roll. If anybody's ever worked in large companies, that's a unique thing. So I shot down to the office. It happened to be business cards, which I don't really need now with COVID at the moment. But we have deployed this solution at AT&T along with those other those other two. So I went through this at the office. It is just that, non-invasive. The individual that was kind of standing there didn't know a lot, and it did literally take 1 to 3 seconds to go through this particular feature or process there. So, Joe.
Here you go.
Yeah, sorry about that. So, again, we'll use this just to kind of mention a little bit about what is entailed in some of the bundles. So this just is a very high-level architecture of just the thermal analytics solution. So I mentioned it does come with a Hitachi Edge gateway. So technically that's a Windows 10 server, OS server, if you would. It's got 4 different ports on it. So the initial low-cost bundle, if you would, via cart or wall-mounted with installation, comes with 1 camera. You can add 3 more cameras if you want to. They can work all off of this 1 server here. Or there's 3 other, potential business continuity, if you would, use cases, features that you can plug into that. You can even use other IoT sensors. So other traditional cameras can plug into this gateway versus if you would just the thermal. So up to 4 cameras. It is a 300-foot power over Ethernet. So, the placement of these cameras need to be within, 300 feet of this particular solution, this gateway here. It is, you see there where it says FirstNet ready. I mentioned a number of, different compliancy and regulation aspects that this solution meets. FirstNet is kind of an AT&T term, but it is our public sector private partnership, and meets a lot of, if you would, public sector qualifications there. So this one's pretty simple. You can run it, again, the cameras and everything over Ethernet, Wi-Fi, or an AT&T 3G, 4G SIM, even 5G eventually here.
And it includes the package as it's priced. It includes that 4G LTE, right? So
it does, and at a at that base level, that trim car purchase, if you would, base car purchase. Again, that's we've turned off the storage. It's not streaming anything to the cloud except metadata, right? Not the actual video footage. So that's why roughly a 5 gigabyte plan on a monthly basis is what's baked into it, without making changes to it. As you get into additional features, legally can be stored or streamed to the web, and we can talk about it.
Let's push on, Rob, because I know we got a bunch of slides to get through, and let's see if we can't just move along a little.
Yeah, so top of the waves, and Sam and I talked a little bit. We have all of those features you saw on that first slide for continuity, as well as traditional IoT video intelligence use cases, more of the smart cities. We have these types of demos or slides. They're like 30 megabytes a piece, so they're hard to move around. This is one we've included, and the only reason I'm putting this in there, I do want to pull through as we talk a little bit later, maybe about high-level pricing, or send you over pricing for, the Thermal Analytics platform, base package. I want 1 cart, 2 carts. And I had this discussion last week with a COO. He said, I want to take this to my CEO, and so we can try to get our facility open back up, this energy company. I said, well, what kind of cameras do you have outside of thermal analytics? And we got into the fact that they can redeploy the thermal camera. They have a fairly large manufacturing facility, so in the dark areas, the areas not well lit that aren't covered by your traditional CCTV cameras, and you can begin to get via object temperature, and you can set a lot of different alert thresholds. So leaves and every little rodent isn't setting that off. And again, it's going to kind of scan the tear duct area. But you can get that perimeter intrusion detection and essentially reevaluate this on cost, if you would, right? So this is just, I sort of cobbled through it a little bit, but how this works, or the recommended way to have this positioned, and within a choke point or two as you go through a particular facility. I mean, the use case again that I mentioned was entering the AT&T office. There's a camera, and it's placed about just that. I think I walked up maybe 5 feet away from this. For 1 to 3 seconds, I could see my outline on there. I run a little bit cool. Nonetheless, it showed a green box, and he said, move on through. It is a very high accuracy rate, and part of that is based on the recommendations of how to scan an individual one by one. Our IoT consulting, as well as integrated solutions team, did do a number of tests on this, and it was right on par with the individual nurse, if you would, putting a thermometer right up to your head there.
Okay,
so what is
I'm gonna go ahead and click through this slide. I think we kind of talked about the Hitachi and so on and so forth. Let's jump into the second solution, the kiosk.
Yeah, the kiosk is a little bit of a different animal, so to speak. No pun intended. There are, I think, a little bit more competitive offers out in the marketplace that probably look like this, but this is also in a number of our different AT&T facilities. So it happened to be the first aspect that I checked into, just by way of example. I went in and we talked about this, Sam. It's designed for, elderly patients, caregivers, it's the doctor that may be technically savvy down to that, potentially nursing home patient, right? So I used a QR code scan. I popped through, it sent me to a website. I filled out that questionnaire, the same thing I kind of saw at the dental office, right? Have I been anywhere in 2 weeks, etc. And in this case, I put in what's called my AT&T UID. It's like we're tattooed when we start here, right? So it did identify me as such. I went from there, right, over to the next solution that we had. But it is highly configurable. That of course you can customize the interaction of the display to do just touchscreen. You can do the QR codes. There again isn't any storage of that, if you would, snapshot or personal identifiable information on the device or console itself. There is a small camera, as you can see right at the top there, and that's the same drill. It's about 1 to 5 seconds. It's going to take a picture and capture that, not showing the way it shows right there on that screen, the actual face of that person. It's going to show their outline and pass or fail again there. The big key.
This could be integrated with the building management systems, though, like the access management systems. I think that's kind of key.
Yeah, that's a big check.
For a less complex experience, just to go up to one of these, see your mugshot with your temperature and so on and so forth, and then assuming you pass, be presented with a questionnaire, right? And then with the integration with the access management system, be able to, like, if you pass and you answer your questionnaires, you're allowed in. Otherwise, you're not. This could be integrated pretty easily, right?
That is correct, and this is affordable as well. I think that this is more the solution you can.
I would think this would be ideal for almost any sort of multi-tenant building and stuff like this.
Yes, you might see the first one that we talked about at the main entrance, but you typically, I don't know that would be on every floor. You might see something like this on every floor. Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is kind of the flow of it. You did a better job than I did. This will address visitors, but of course that access management for additional personnel can be integrated into this. So it's just presenting some form of identity. So everybody's got a pretty rigid visitor process these days. You get the questionnaire presented in some fashion. We mentioned there's a tiny little bullet somewhere on here, but it's pretty slick. There is a antibacterial or microbial function where the screen is zapped via ultraviolet light. So think of, there's some additional hygiene besides somebody physically going around and cleaning that machine. And then you kind of see the flow of here. So it's pretty simple just in terms of being able to leverage this. And, it says office all the way down to warehouse facilities. And yes, not just for senior living. And I use that analogy because all kinds of different levels of perhaps technology savviness, and that's stereotyping, right? I'm thinking about maybe my mother in particular. So the screening process, ideally, it's contactless, right? That's where everybody's trying to get to. This is also, a little bit less of a requirement to have an individual perhaps there. If you don't have security within that business structure where you've got an FTE or facilities person that, can be deployed, that's the whole idea. So the contact, it's very, very fast. It took me more time to get my phone unlocked with my password, right, than to kind of get through this particular process and hit yes, no, yes, no. So I think the the key is the symptom screening that may vary a little bit by your municipality or how you want to conduct it by business in terms of how you want to set the thresholds and what are the next actions if somebody does fail. That door not unlocked? Does it send an alert to the front desk or another floor, or just how that works can be integrated and customized, quite frankly, very easily here. So alerts and automation can be built into that there. And really just the elements, I know a lot of these slides look similar, but as you kind of go back through, this one outlines, again, just like the other one, how can we bundle this together? Well, there's, it comes with a fairly large 22-inch screen, right, with that anti-microbial technology I was mentioning to Sam. These have now been deployed. These lights, we're powering a lot of them for hospitals and different things, but recently on school buses, which I found maybe interesting. We can do 12, 24, 36 months, OPEX or MRC pricing. We can talk about that a little bit later. This just kind of talks about the standard offer, if you would, and what that entails in terms of on-site installation, configuration, and there's some additional cost if you needed some work on integration into existing systems, if you couldn't do that with the APIs out there.
So moving on to our third solution, thermal crowd scanning.
Yeah, and super cool. And we have a couple of demo slides that we really didn't include, but it gets into some specific use cases. More typically, we talked a little bit about the FDA's recommendations and different requirements by state. Not the ability to scan people and use that data without their permission to allow entry. So this is more about being able to identify patterns in a crowd. So think of an airport, a larger venue, even a big box store, maybe after the fact. Once folks are in a particular area, but you can go in and create, an outline, if you would, of the camera's view. And in this particular case, it can identify up to 40 people within a crowd fairly instantly. And we talked a little bit, Sam, how we start to get away from some of the accuracy, because when you don't have somebody stop for 1 to 3 seconds, you don't know if they're carrying a cup of coffee, just sipped coffee, left the gym. So there is, the ability to, and mandatory to pixelate out any P2 data we can't capture, or correlate them back into, identify them and say this is XYZ employee. So it is identifying pass or fail by group, but gives you statistics and analytics, of course, how many people, in that open market or that, pedestrian thoroughfare downtown that we're trying to get going again, we're let in or we're moving about in that area that look to be over that temperature, and how many people might have been wearing personal protection equipment. People counting in general, you can configure this to be on in a outdoor or indoor environment and begin to come up with those thresholds automatically. Do I have 25% occupancy, or am I at that fire limit that it says on the wall? So yeah, you probably have to push that button. You get kind of a feel for.
I don't know if I don't actually. It wasn't actually. There was no mobility and no motion in that slide you sent.
That was a last-minute ad, so
yeah,
my apologies. But you get, just that indication there, and you see a green line, so that starts to be able to, mass transit would be a really good use case for here, and it gives you intel later as well to, place other services, if you would, whether it's concessions or trains, make different decisions as well down the road.
Cool. Okay. I kind of threw this together real quick because we didn't really have anything really polished, but I just took the numbers that you'd shared over, Rob, and obviously all this pricing needs to sort of be reconfirmed and stuff like this, but I tried to pull together what I could. Interesting to note, some of the solutions pricing was packaged with like 2 units coming out of the gate, and others were single units, and so on and so forth. So there's like a 12, 24, and 36 months for each of the 3 different solutions here. So again, as you mentioned, really like the kiosk solution is pretty inexpensive, and because it's largely paying for hardware and install for all of these solutions, you can see as you move between a 12-month solution and a 36-month solution, all you're really doing is basically dividing up those costs to be an operational cost versus a capex. So it's making it very inexpensive over a 36-month term. It doesn't really matter which of the solutions you're looking at. For folks who thought this technology looks awesome, it's got to be super expensive, I think what's really clear here is it's not really that expensive. And if you're talking about a 30K total contract value over 36 months, or 12 months, however long you want to sign the deal, right? It's pretty inexpensive considering all the benefits it's giving you, and the benefits it's giving your employees as they return to work and see that you're putting their health and wellness before everything, right? By making sure that these sorts of precautions are being made by you, the employer. So I think it's really pretty neat. Ross asks, no capex requirements. Now, all of these solutions, there are capex opportunities if and that's preferred, but AT&T is able to roll these out as a pure OpEx type model, and that's what we're showing here. So,
yeah, you're 100.
Again, if you guys would like some particular pricing for your own business, or maybe you want to share this video when it comes out with your building management company or whatever, and they want to get some detailed pricing, Rob and I would be happy to drum up those numbers for you and explore those, depending upon maybe there's some additional things you want over and above the sort of thermal imaging type sort of stuff. As we said, there's lots of integration capabilities.
So after these initial terms are done with, whether you do the 12, 24, 36 months, is there still an operational expense afterwards, or is it your equipment? The equipment is yours.
The equipment is yours, right, Rob? And really, the only ongoing real expense after that, I believe, is really going to be for your AT&T LTE connectivity that comes with the units. Is that right, Rob?
That is correct. So, and that's where we spend a little bit of time of saying, hey, there's life after simply temperature screening for people, so that you would own it as a customer, and there you can redeploy, for instance, to look at a warehouse to make sure things aren't overheating, things like batteries, lithium-ion batteries, the HVAC on the roof. All those things we kind of just touched on very briefly. So, yeah, you would own it if you wanted to kind of continue on with the thermal imaging. There's a small maintenance and connectivity MRC that we could continue on with, or you could turn it off and figure out a way to redeploy it, whatever you want to do with it. Yeah.
Right. No, I think that's super nice.
In regards to support, let's say during that term, let's say you have some type of hardware failure or the stuff is not working properly, they call into AT&T support and they either deploy some new equipment or a technician, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's part of that. The slide we're looking at right now, the complexity of this is not a generally available product that AT&T General Care would have, or you're able to order from a website or anything. It's through our consulting and integration group, and we actually create a There's a dedicated support line that the customer is provided. So it is a specific support pod for this equipment. There is rapid replace and exchange. It's under full warranty for that period of
Right.
time. Yeah, it's well put together in that regard.
Cool.
Thank you.
Well, that's pretty much it. I just want to just wrap up again. Review USA Voice and Data. Again, we're an independent technology advisor and broker. We help businesses make tough technology decisions, evaluate competing providers. We have a huge, massive of suppliers such as AT&T around every type of technology solution out there in the marketplace. And we'd be happy to help you guys with a free technology evaluation if you just reach out to us. And again, the key takeaways today, video and IoT solutions are here. And today you've heard about 3 solutions, Thermal Analytics solutions from AT&T. Obviously, they have a bunch of others that we'd be happy to explore with you if you've got some other thoughts and needs. Work from home absolutely is here to stay, but people are going back. And as business leaders and owners, etc., it's up to you to make sure that they feel comfortable doing so. And as we've seen from that pricing, I think the AT&T solutions are extremely cost-effective ways to help you demonstrate to your customers and potentially vendors and visitors who are going to start to visit you that you're looking out for their well-being. And again, the team here at USA Voice and Data would love to thank you for your time. Happy to help you with any solution evaluations and provide you with a free technology transformation plan. All you need to do is reach out. Whether you've got a video intelligence IoT need such as this, or whether it's something more traditional like internet connectivity, cloud services, UCaaS, et cetera, et cetera. We'd be really happy to help you explain your options to you and some considerations you might want to make when making those decisions, and also introduce you to qualified and well-vetted suppliers for each of those solutions. So with that, Rob, thanks so much for your time. Excellent insight, and happy to be working with AT&T on this. Again, thank everyone for your time. This video should be going up in the next day or 2, and look out for an email with a link to the video recording. Be sure to share it with anybody else who you think might be interested in this. Thanks again.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.